This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And happy Monday evening to everyone out there in the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. This is the Start Spreading the News program. We are here every Monday night from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And most often, we are live. But tonight, we're being recorded. We're being recorded because sports is such an important part of so many of our lives. And the way we root for teams and the players we root for, well, there's always great stories about all of that. And really, that's the story of why this program this evening is coming to you recorded rather than live. This is a baseball program, of course. It's the Start Spreading the News program. But in addition to loving baseball, especially the New York Yankees, I have more than a passing interest in football. Now, tonight, while this show is going live, and of course it's also shown recorded at other times, but while this show is going to you live, there's also a big football game being played. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing the Dallas Cowboys. The winner continues through the playoffs. The loser goes home. And the quarterback, of course, on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is the great Tom Brady. And it's because of Tom Brady that I'm recording the show this evening. And without EJ, it's just me this week. Next week, Dr. EJ Fagan will be back with me in the studio, ready for a great program. But, my dear friends, this is the big picture. When my youngest son, Ethan, who also works on the Start Spreading the News website with me, when he started to get into football, the greatest quarterback at that time for the New England Patriots was, of course, Tom Brady. And in the beginning, Ethan was a Giants fan and a Patriots fan, and he was enjoying both teams. But over time, Tom Brady really became the player that he really gravitated towards. He became a big Tom Brady fan. And when Brady left the Patriots and went to the Buccaneers, Ethan said, well, I'm a Brady fan. I'm going to root for Brady no matter what team he's playing for. And so for the last few years, we've been watching the Buccaneers and rooting for them as well. And of course, Tom Brady being in his mid-40s, well, anytime there's a playoff game, it could be his last game ever. And we don't want to miss it. And since Tom Brady became my son's favorite player, this is what dads do. He became my favorite player. And so I enjoy watching the football games with Ethan. And since, again, it might be Tom Brady's last game, well, we're going to watch it together. I don't want to miss that game. But I also, of course, don't want to miss the Start Spreading the News show. So here we are, talking Yankee baseball, while the football game with Tom Brady against the Cowboys is also being played. It's interesting. My father, who was born in 1938, became a Red Sox fan when he was 8 years old in 1946. My dad and his twin brother were looking through Life magazine, and they found an ad for Chesterfield cigarettes, of all things. The 1940s was a much different time. And there was a baseball player in that ad, and that baseball player was Ted Williams of the Red Sox. Well, there were really two baseball players in that ad. The other player was Stan Musial of the St. Louis Cardinals. Well, for whatever reason, my dad gravitated toward Teddy Ballgame, And my uncle gravitated toward Stan the Man. And my uncle became a lifelong St. Louis Cardinals fan. One little thing when he was 8 years old. And here we are all these years later. He is still at 84 years old, a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. And my father, all these years later, is still a huge Boston Red Sox fan. It's interesting that they both picked their favorite teams at that point and stuck with them forever. And they love the Cardinals, my uncle, and the Red Sox, my dad. And to my dad's great credit, when I was growing up in northern New Jersey in 1977, when I was 8 years old, and I started gravitating toward a team, he didn't say I had to root for the Red Sox. He said, root for whoever you want. And there were some great Yankees, including Greg Nettles. You can see his picture right here behind me. He became my favorite player. But of course, there were other great players like Roy White and Reggie Jackson and Ron Guidry and Chris Chambliss and Willie Randolph, Mickey Rivers, so many. Well, I gravitated to the Yankees, and I've been a lifelong Yankee fan ever since. But I'm probably the only Yankee fan, or one of the few, who doesn't automatically hate the Red Sox. Now, my dad's a bigger baseball fan than me. My dad can watch a Red Sox game and they could lose, but if it's a well-played game and it's exciting, he could say that was an exciting game. I can't do that. If I'm watching a Yankee game and the Yankees lose, most often if they lose, no matter how great the game was, no matter how exciting, no matter how historical, if the Yankees lose and my dad says, hey, that was a great game, I'll say, no, it wasn't a great game. It was terrible. The Yankees lost. I can't see the big picture when it comes to the Yankees. I don't enjoy watching them lose, no matter how great the game might be. But my dad, well, he's sort of like me with Ethan rooting for the Patriots and being a Tom Brady fan. Well, my dad has this ability to, and he does this much better than me, to help root for the Yankees when the Yankees make the postseason and the Red Sox are out of it. That was always sort of our agreement. Like, if the Yankees are out of it, Dad, I'll root for the Red Sox. I rooted hard for the Red Sox in the '86 World Series against the Mets. That didn't all work out so well for the Red Sox, but it worked out well for me being a Red Sox fan in the postseason that year. But like in 2004, after the Red Sox humiliated the Yankees, I found it very hard to root for the Red Sox in that World Series. In fact, I just didn't watch at all. But this is what it's like to be a fan. This is what we do as fans. We have a wonderful series being run on Start Spreading the News right now. One of our writers, James Valestra, has looked at the entire history of the Yankees. And he is listing in order, counting down in groups of 25, the top 250 moments in Yankees history. Can you imagine the top 250 moments in Yankees history? And he's counting them down one by one. Some things very obscure. He has done a ton of research. But it made me think, what do you think are the greatest moments in Yankees history? What do you think will be number one? And similarly, what is the greatest moment that you recall from your life as a fan? What's your greatest Yankees moment of all time? Something good to think about, right? Take a moment. Your greatest baseball memory, or because this is a Yankees show, your greatest Yankees memory. I'll share one of mine with you. I still have the ticket stub, and here it is. 1996 World Series. I was there, Game 6, when the Yankees won the World Series. I was in the seats. I was at the stadium. Quick aside, you see how I still have the ticket? I still have the ticket stub. There it is, from when I went to the game in 1996. I think we lose something as a peoples, as a society. I don't really know how to quite explain it, but most days when you go to the games now, you show your phone. There's no ticket. I just bought tickets for my wife and I to see a couple of concerts. Comedian Kevin James in concert. He's coming to the local area in a couple months. So we got tickets. And then I got an email and it says, your tickets are here on the phone. So we'll go to the venue. It'll be great. I'm sure we'll laugh a lot. Kevin James is funny. But we won't have that tangible ticket, that tangible item to hold in our hands to say, we went to this. I was part of this. I was there with my dad in 1996. And that's really the point that I started off with this, the whole show today. When I was in the stadium in 1996, rooting for the Yankees to beat the Braves in what was one of the most remarkable games I've ever seen, and probably my favorite Yankees moments of all time. My dad, a lifelong Red Sox fan who had never seen his team win a World Series to that point, was there right next to me, as excited as I was, almost maybe. I don't think more. I wonder if it was equal, but close to excited at least as I was watching the Yankees as they're about to win and then winning the World Series. Interestingly enough, with one of his Red Sox, Wade Boggs, one of the key contributors to the Yankees team that year. And then it was Wade Boggs who rode on the policeman's horse around the edge of the stadium after it was just magical. It was great. But my dad has that ability, and maybe it's because he's a dad, right? To say, well, my team's out of it. I'd rather my son be happy. And he was so joyful that day as we watched the Yankees win the World Series. It was great. But I wonder if we're not missing something and losing something as a people, as human beings, in that we don't have those mementos, those silly things like ticket stubs that we can hold on to and cherish and look at and remember great events of our lives through a tangible item. My wife and I will go see Kevin James. We'll laugh a lot, and there won't be a ticket stub to put in a frame anywhere or in a scrapbook so that we can remember. It'll just be in our heads. It'll be gone forever. Maybe we'll take a selfie. Maybe not. Who knows? But maybe we lose something by not having those items. Anyway, when we count down the top 250 moments in Yankees history, I wonder what James is going to come up with as number one. I have my ideas. And again, what are your great Yankee moments? What are your great Yankee memories? If you go to Start Spreading the News, the website, there's a place where you can send email to us. You click on the little email link there. You can share your ideas. I can bring them to this show in a future episode, or I can write about them on the site, or maybe even both. But that definitely was one of my favorite moments when the Yankees won the 96 World Series. And another one of my great Yankee moments happened in 2009. I was at the game with my son, Ethan, watching the Yankees. Ethan's favorite player was the left fielder and DH, Hideki Matsui. Ethan loved Hideki Matsui. It's great when we have players, the players we first become the biggest fans of, the players who are our idols, like Stan Musial and Ted Williams for my dad and my uncle, Greg Nettles for me, and Hideki Matsui for my son. There's just a special connection that you make with those players, even though you never meet them or hardly ever. Anyway, it was a 2009 game. We knew Hideki Matsui was probably not coming back to the Yankees for the 2010 season. And Hideki came up in the bottom of the ninth and hit a walk-off game-winning home run for the Yankees. It was magical. It was absolutely dynamic and wonderful and magical and special. And the joy that my son had at that moment as a 9-year-old, tears coming down his face, or maybe he was 10, but tears coming down his face. He's so happy. The joy of baseball. And that's what it's all about. That's why we root. And that's why we're watching Tom Brady tonight, because you want to root and have fun and enjoy what sports is all about. The hope and the magic and the thrills and the moments. I'm thinking when James Valestra gets down to those top moments, that the number one moment, the greatest moment in Yankees history, isn't a moment that happened during a game. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the greatest moment in Yankees history didn't happen on the field during a game. The top 5 moments could probably all come from games, except for number 1. But among those top great moments, I think Don Larson's perfect game has to be one of those moments. Has to be. I think Bucky Dent's home run to beat the Red Sox in 1978 has to be one of those moments. I think Chris Chambliss's home run to put the Yankees back into the World Series in 1976 has to be one of those moments. Aaron Judge's home run number 62 from last summer could be one of those moments. Roger Maris's 61st home run could be one of those moments. Babe Ruth's 60th home run could be one of those moments. I don't quite know how you frame Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak. Is that one moment for 56 straight games? It could be. But if you're doing individual days, I don't know how you pick one. The day he broke Wee Willie Keeler's mark of 44? Could be. But I don't think when that happened, everybody said, oh, he hit in his 45th game. How exciting. I think the whole idea of the streak was exciting. And so when he got that 56th hit in the 56th game, I don't think that people said, oh, he's made it to 56. All right, he could stop now. Because the hope was that he'd hit more the next day. And that story's a great story. The day that Joe DiMaggio had his hitting streak end in 1941, Kenny Keltner, the third baseman on the Cleveland Indians, made a couple of great defensive plays that ended DiMaggio's streak. So maybe the game that the streak ended is a great moment in Yankee history, or at least baseball history. It's a significant moment, but the 56th game wasn't. So I don't quite know how you put the 56 game hitting streak in there. But I think the greatest moment in Yankees history, the single greatest moment, and if it was my list, this would be number 1. It'll be interesting to see, because I don't know what James Valestra will choose as his number 1 moment. But I think the greatest moment in Yankees history was Lou Gehrig's speech. Let's talk a little about Lou Gehrig's speech. But first, we're going to take a very quick commercial break. And we'll be back right after these messages.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, you guys any...
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
All right, we're back again. Thanks for enjoying those quick commercials. I'll give it one of my own right here. One of the great Yankees of all time is the left fielder, Roy White. Roy White was one of the greatest Yankee players and possibly the greatest left fielder who ever played for the Yankees. Roy White and I collaborated on his brand new book. It's called From Compton to the Bronx. The foreword is by Marty Appel. And that wonderful book, and there's Roy and I together, that wonderful book, From Compton to the Bronx, will be available on Amazon beginning on April 11th. The book will be released on April 11th. It'll be in your bookstores. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any place where you can buy books, you'll be able to buy From Compton to the Bronx. But you can now pre-order it. You can pre-order From Compton to the Bronx right now. So imagine buying the book right now, and then on April 11th or thereabouts, the mail comes and delivered to your doorstep is Roy White's autobiography. That book, which I sent to lots of different writers, has come back to me with praise up one side, down the other. They say it is a phenomenal, phenomenal book. And I think it is, of course, but I wrote it with Roy White. You don't want to miss From Compton to the Bronx. Also, if you go to Start Spreading the News, you'll see a little banner on the right side of the page. It says Dr. Semendinger's Book Talks. I'm going to be at a lot of SABRE meetings virtually over the next few months at a whole bunch of libraries. And Roy White and I are working on a lot of stadium venues and all sorts of other venues where you can meet us both, get our autographs, buy the book, hear us talk about Roy White's great career. Keep an eye out for all of these events. Again, the banner on Start Spreading the News on the right side will tell you exactly where you need to go to have a chance to see me or me and Roy talking about his career, my writing career, and having a wonderful opportunity really just to talk baseball. So, the number one greatest moment in Yankees history, I think it's Lou Gehrig's speech. I think Lou Gehrig's speech on July 4th, 1939, is the single greatest moment in Yankees history. It's, I think, one of the great moments in baseball history. Here was Lou Gehrig, struck down in the prime of his life, in his 30s, by a terrible disease, ALS, which of course now bears his name as Lou Gehrig's disease. A disease that ravages your body and it makes your body unable to do the things it used to do. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible disease. And Lou Gehrig had it. And it, of course, took away his ability to play Major League Baseball. One of the greats of all time. I loved when I was a principal talking to the students about Lou Gehrig. Once he got in the lineup in the mid-1920s, in 1925, he played every single game. He didn't miss a game. This is what we talk about when we talk about hard work and dedication and working to be our best. You don't miss. So he played every game for the rest of that year. I believe the streak started on May 25th, 1925. And then he played every game in 1926. And then he played every game in 1927. And then in 28, 29, and 30. And then in 1931, guess what? He played in every game. And then he did the same thing in 32, 33, and 34. And then guess what happened in 1935? Yep, he played in every single game. And then in 1936, and in 1937, and in 1938, he did the same. All the way until 1939, when he finally had to take himself out of the lineup because he couldn't play anymore. It's a fascinating story. One of the most dedicated, great players of all time. And his career ends because of a terrible disease. And then comes Lou Gehrig Day, that great moment in Yankee history. The first time the Yankees had ever really had anything like an old-timers day, they retired Lou Gehrig's uniform number. They said no one else will ever wear number 4. That's Lou's number. It's the first time a number is ever retired. And according to the stories, Lou Gehrig wasn't going to speak that day. But they encouraged him. They said, come on, you got to go up to the microphone. Lou, the people here, Yankee Stadium is crowded. It's packed. It's all there because of you, for you. The people are pouring out their love for you. And so Lou Gehrig goes to the microphone. And I just like to pause here and let the moment almost speak for itself. Think of what you would say if in the prime of your life you were struck down by something out of your control that took away your ability to do what you love to do, what you're great at, and you know it's just a matter of time before it kills you. How horrible must that have been? I think there's a lot of people that would go up to the microphone at that point and say, I got to tell you, this stinks. This is the worst day ever. Thanks for coming out, but I got to tell you, like, can you imagine how much bad luck I have? I think that's what a lot of people would say, but not Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig showed why he is so classy, why he was such a great human being. He said, at the moment when it was most easy to feel sorry for himself, he said, today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. He said, I might have been given a bad break, but I have an awful lot to live for. And if that doesn't exemplify what it's all about in life, positive attitudes, showing appreciation, sharing love, I don't know what does. So if I were making the list, Lou Gehrig's speech absolutely positively would be the number one moment in Yankees history. All right, so let's continue talking about the Yankees a little bit here. I had an article that ran yesterday, which was Sunday, the 15th of January, 2023. And the title of the article was, I Figured It Out. If you think about Yankees fans right now, they seem to be really in two different camps. There is this camp that believes the Yankees don't spend enough money, that the Yankees are cheap. And sometimes they are, even though they always have one of the top 2, 3, 4, or 5 payrolls in the sport. Sometimes it seems like the Yankees are being cheap. And then you have this other camp where they're basically like, the Yankees spend all this money. They are absolutely nothing like being cheap. And it's just bad luck that they haven't won a World Series since 2009. But they're definitely investing in putting the best team on the field. They got Giancarlo Stanton. They've got Garrett Cole. They just signed Aaron Judge to a $40 million a year contract. And then they went out and signed Carlos Rodon. They're definitely not cheap. And as a fan and as someone who studies the game, I try to reconcile these different ideas. The Yankees are certainly not cheap. They just gave Aaron Judge a 9-year contract for $40 million a year. Paying a guy $360 million to play right field for the next 9 years is definitely not cheap. Having one of the biggest payrolls in the sport is definitely not cheap. And then again, as I said, going out and getting Carlos Rodon, the best available pitcher, to add him to your starting rotation, already headed by Garrett Cole, one of the best pitchers and who's also making a ton of money, is definitely not a team being cheap. But then, at the same time that the Yankees aren't being cheap, Joel Sherman of the Post has reported that the Yankees said, well, we were going to get Andrew Benintendi to play left field, but Carlos Rodon was a bit expensive, and so we got to cut costs. And the way it looks right now, the Yankees don't really have a good option for left field. Right now, left field will be Aaron Hicks. Now, that's really not a good option. Aaron Hicks has been terrible the last few years. Might be a nice person, but as a baseball player, he has underperformed and he's been hurt. So that's not great. Well, it may not be Aaron Hicks. It might be Oswaldo Cabrera. He came up last year and was really amazing, and he had some good moments, and he did, and he showed a lot of moxie, and he brought a lot of fun to the team. But Oswaldo Cabrera is an infielder who was sort of moonlighting in the outfield. And we saw him make a couple of bad plays in the series against the Cleveland Guardians in the playoffs. That's going to be your starting left fielder? Doesn't really excite me a whole lot. Wait. It's not going to be either of those guys. A former number 1 Yankee prospect is Estevan Florial. Left-handed hitting outfielder, quick, got some power, very speedy. Except that the Yankees have never given Florial a chance to really play left field or even center field. Like, he comes up and he sits on the bench, and then they send him back to the minor leagues. And in his career, he's never really shown that he can hit Major League Baseball pitching for any extended period. Of course, you could say he hasn't had a chance to play for any extended period, but it's the chicken and egg thing. You could say, well, if he hit, they'd let him play. He didn't hit, so they didn't let him play. Whatever. That's not an inspiring choice right now. The guy they won't let play these last number of years, they're going to make him the left fielder? So you have a guy who's been hurt, who's underperformed, or you have an infielder who's young and might overperform, but he's an infielder, or you have an outfielder who they won't play. These are our choices for left field because the Yankees didn't want to spend any money? Oh, wait. There's another option. Giancarlo Stanton, who they are paying big bucks to. He could play left field. He's done it a little bit. Maybe you put Giancarlo Stanton in left field, but Stanton's now 33 years old and, well, he's very injury prone. He doesn't stay healthy. Do you really want him trying to run around in the outfield, trying to catch balls? I don't. I have this sense that for every hit he has, he would let one go back the other way because I just don't think he's a great outfielder. And I don't think he's going to get any better at all. He's slow, he's lumbering, and he's always hurt. That's not a great option. So Cabrera, Hicks, Florial, Stanton, what's the other option? Well, earlier this month and in late December, Brian Cashman had signed a whole bunch of, quadruple A baseball players, guys who were better than triple A, but really haven't been great major leaguers. He signed a whole bunch of those guys. And I guess they're all going to audition in spring training. That's a reasonably cost efficient option. But none of these are inspiring. So on one hand, you see the Yankees trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and trying to make left field work with 5 or more very poor options. And at the same time, they're paying their right fielder $40 million. And they just signed Carlos Rodon, and they're paying Garrett Cole. And this is what I think I figured out. I figured out that the Yankees can't quite decide who they are as a franchise. They like to puff themselves up real big when they make one of these big signings. And they say, we are the Yankees. We are the most powerful team. I loved it this winter before the Judge situation was resolved when Hal Steinbrenner stood up at the owners' meeting and said, I'm not being outbid on my star player. Just so you know, Judge is staying a Yankee. I will not be outbid. I loved that. That was a moment. That was awesome. But then at the same time, when they say, we'll spend big, they then go, well, we're going to go tiny. Left fielder, got these options. And that's what I figured out. I figured out that the Yankees themselves don't really know their own identity. They're of two minds. One mind is, we're a small market club. You don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to compete. You can win with smart acquisitions and young players, and you can. So they say, let's do that for left field. But then at the same time, they go, well, it's really not smart to try long shot players and young kids, so let's go out and get Carlos Rodon. And if that was sort of the big plan, the way it happened, if it was explained that way, like we're going to go big in certain areas and small in other areas, because we have a budget, I think it would make more sense to fans. But that's just not the way, like, it's ever articulated, if nothing else, to the fans. Like when they signed Aaron Judge and they had the big press conference, somebody said, like, are you done? And one of the answers was, no, we have left field to address. And the sense was, we're the Yankees. We can spend whatever it takes and we will do whatever it takes to win. But then they go, we're going to go small. And I think that's the problem. The Yankees are willing to spend, but they don't necessarily spend with a long-term budget in mind. A couple of years ago, DJ LeMahieu, then 32 years old, I believe, was going to be a free agent. He had just overperformed in his first 2 years as a Yankee. I wrote a lot of articles about this at the time. He had done much better than his numbers ever said he would. And he was like 31 or 32 years old. He was about to get to old age as a baseball player. And I showed historically how the best second baseman, because that's what LeMahieu was, aged. And for whatever reason, the comparisons I found, the players who were the greatest second basemen, for whatever reason, the history of second basemen is that they don't age particularly well. But the Yankees felt they had to keep DJ LeMahieu. And so they're paying him, $15 or $16 million a year for like 6 years. They're paying him a lot of money to go through and into and past his mid-30s. See, to me, that's the type of deal, if you're working on a budget, you don't make. There has to be cheaper alternatives than a 32-year-old second baseman who you're going to be paying close to top dollar for as he gets old and his production drops. That's nothing against DJ LeMahieu. He's been a great Yankee. But if you're working within a budget, I think sometimes you have to say, that's a luxury we can't have. That luxury is going to get in the way of us being able to compete in a few years because we're going to take that part of our salary cap. It's a luxury tax, but the Yankees use it as a salary cap. We're going to take that part of our salary cap and allocate it just to an old, aging second baseman. Doesn't make any sense to me. But it seems like the Yankees move on one thing at a time. Let's get LeMahieu. Let's not worry about next year, the year after, or 6 years from now. We've got to get LeMahieu. And then they go, uh-oh, we have no more money left. We can't really address left field. And that's what I think I discovered, is I don't know if there's a big plan that's articulated and followed from year to year to year. It's, let's get this guy right now because it sounds great. But then, almost like buyer's remorse. You ever buy something and then you're like, ooh, I wish I hadn't bought that. We'll have to save our money now because I shouldn't have purchased that item. That's what it feels like the Yankees do. They get buyer's remorse, and then they don't really spend the rest of the money necessary, and they go into the season with an inferior product. I'm concerned that the Yankees are going to go into 2023 with not great options for left field. A patchwork. They're going to try to piece it together. The Yankees also haven't been able to address the fact that they don't have any left-handed hitting other than Anthony Rizzo in the lineup. You would have thought that would have been a priority this winter. Like, we have got to get good left-handed hitting. And the lineup as a whole, while some people say it's so strong, I'm concerned. I'm going to read you some numbers. I was going to do this on the Dr. Sem show a couple of weeks ago. That airs every Saturday morning here at 7 a.m. I was going to do this on that show. Giancarlo Stanton's second half numbers. Now, forgive me, they're traditional baseball statistics, home runs, RBIs, batting average. But I still think those numbers tell a story. Second half of the year, last year, Giancarlo hit 151 with 7 homers. First base, Anthony Rizzo hit 222 with 10 homers and only 18 ribbies. Stanton only had 17. Gleyber Torres in the second half of the year hit only 243 with 10 homers. Josh Donaldson hit only 219 with 6 homers. Harrison Bader hit only 217 in the second half of last year. And Jose Trevino, the catcher, hit only 226 with 4 homers and 18 RBIs. But every one of those guys, their numbers went down from the first half to the second half. Stanton went from 237 to 151. Rizzo from 224 to 222, but his homers dropped in the first half from 22 down to 10. His RBIs dropped from 57 to 18. Gleyber Torres went from 268 to 243, and his homers dropped from 14 to 10. Josh Donaldson went from 224 to 219. His homers dropped. Harrison Bader hit 256 for the Cardinals in the first half and just 217 for the Yankees in the second half. And Jose Trevino hit 270 for the Yankees in the first half and only 226 for the Yankees in the second half. Trevino, Bader, Donaldson, Torres, Rizzo, and Stanton. That's 6 of the lineup spots. Who are the other 3? Left field, we don't know who's playing out there. Shortstop, we don't know who's playing there. And right field. Well, in right field, Aaron Judge in the first half of last year hit 284. In the second half of last year, Aaron Judge was Superman. Literally. In the second half, he hit 349. He's their offense. I think the Yankees in 2023 are going to be giving up a lot of outs because they didn't build a team that has a balanced offensive approach. And it's an older team, except maybe left field and maybe shortstop, of guys who didn't perform as the season went on last year. If that happens again, I don't see Aaron Judge carrying the team. Aaron Judge is great. But last year, he had a superhuman season. I just don't think Aaron Judge or anybody can put up back-to-back seasons like that, especially a second half like that, to carry a team. And again, the Yankees don't have any left-handed hitting outside of Anthony Rizzo. As a right-handed hitter last year, Oswaldo Cabrera hit 286. Okay. But as a left-handed hitter, he hit only 238. So there's a switch hitter who you could put in the lineup, but he doesn't hit as well lefty. At least he didn't last year. Aaron Hicks, as a right-handed batter, hit 234. Okay. Against right-handed pitching as a left-handed batter, he hit 207. Those are the only other lefty bats the Yankees have. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. Now, last year, you could say that one of the guys who helped the Yankees was Matt Carpenter. He came out of nowhere, left-handed bat. Brian Cashman found him in the minor leagues, on the scrap heap and brought him in, and he performed like Superman until he got hurt, hitting home runs, being magical. It was awesome. And as Yankee fans, we love to say, and I'm a Cashman supporter by and large, I think he's done a very good job. And I think when he doesn't do a good job, maybe a lot of that, like left field this year, is because of budget constraints that are put on him that inhibit his ability to get the best possible players to play in the positions where they're needed. And I'm not saying the Yankees need an all-star in every position. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying the Yankees don't spend money. They do. But when you invest a lot of money in Josh Donaldson at third base by picking up a terrible contract and you're paying DJ LeMahieu a lot of money to be a reserve infielder at this point, to the detriment of being able to put a quality left field option on the field, then something's wrong with the formula. We give Brian Cashman a lot of credit, a ton of credit, for finding guys like Matt Carpenter on the scrap heaps, having them come into the Yankees and being phenomenal. That's happened quite a lot. And Brian Cashman deserves a lot of credit for that. But what we tend to forget at the same time is when he brings in Kendrys Morales or Jay Bruce or Travis Hafner or Neil Walker or Troy Tulowitzki. On and on. Chris Carter, Chris Gittens, Mike Ford, all sorts of guys, young players, old players, whatever. Oh, this is the answer. We found the diamond in the rough. And they miss a lot on those guys. They miss a lot on those guys while they're trying to save money. But while they're trying to save money and address a problem position budgetarily, the team is put at a disadvantage. And that's, I think, where the problem lies. For every Matt Carpenter, there's a Troy Tulowitzki, a Travis Hafner, a guy who didn't perform. Rugnick Odor a couple of years ago, they brought him in. He's a big lefty bat. He was terrible. He had some big hits. And I think as fans, sometimes we look at those big hits, but overall his numbers were not good. And I think that's where the Yankees' problem lies. They'll spend the money, thank goodness, because I love when they get the good ball players, and I love that they got Rodon, and I love that they're keeping Judge, and I loved when they got Stanton, and I loved when they got Cole, and I loved when they got Tanaka, on and on. I don't like, though, when they then say we can't get other guys because we didn't budget well enough to build an entire team the right way. If you're going to go all in, go all in. Luxury tax, no luxury tax, do what you have to do. Let's get the Yankees great. Or say, listen, we're going to build a team. It's going to be a budget conscious team. And this is our 5-year plan. So the reason we can't re-sign DJ LeMahieu is he's getting older and we don't want to be spending that much money for a guy entering his decline. So we're going to have to let him go because we need to address lots of positions, and we're not going to invest that much money in one position for an aging guy. If that's what the Yankees would do, you'd say that makes sense. It's all good. Yeah, I get it. We all live within a budget. Sure. But they go out and they spend big, and then they go, oh, well, uh-oh.
Didn't really add up all the numbers yet, and now we're getting close to that luxury tax threshold, which is a cap for us. So, and for most teams, to be fair, but guess we can't get another left fielder. Good luck to all those other options. We'll see if one of them clicks. That's just not the way to do it. And then the Yankees lose. I had an article last week. There was this idea that the Yankees lose in the playoffs because it's random chance and bad luck. And I made the point that if it was bad luck, then when bad luck plays into account for a team not winning, that usually means that the best team didn't win. But since 2013 on, the Yankees have not been the best team in the playoffs. There's always been at least one other team in the playoffs, if not more, that had a better record than the Yankees during the regular season, meaning they're better. And the Yankees didn't win, but they never went into the playoffs as the number one pick, as the number one seed. They weren't the best team going in, so it wasn't luck, bad luck, or chance or fate that cost them the ability to advance through the playoffs. It was the fact that there were better teams in the playoffs than they were. And if you continually go into the playoffs without being the best team, odds are you're going to continually go out of the playoffs without reaching the World Series. Couple quick things, my dear friends. If you haven't read The Least Among Them, this book, all about Yankees history, it's great. It's my book, of course. I wrote it, but it's great. If you haven't read it yet, please take a look. You can buy this at any bookseller, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. The Least Among Them tells the story of the 29 Yankees whose entire career lasted for just one game. We spent so much time talking about the great Yankees. They were also great. But in that book, I also tell other big Yankee stories that many people have never told. It's phenomenal. And if you haven't read my novel, Scattering the Ashes, oh, do you want to laugh and cry? You want to read a book about family and love and a book about faith? A book about a guy who runs the New York City Marathon, a book about a guy who's a big baseball fan, a guy who's lonely, his relationship with his father, a woman he finds who changes his life. I'm telling you, Scattering the Ashes. If you haven't read it yet, it's a novel. It's phenomenal. You'll love it. Impossible is an Illusion is a series of essays I wrote, all motivational, all stories to help you become the best you. Things that you may not have thought about, but ways to make your own life happier, better, more productive. They're great stories. All three of those books have been heralded. They've gotten a lot of great praise. Can you do me one other favor? If you've read them, and if you haven't given them a great review on, if you like them, of course, but if you have read them and loved them and you haven't given them 5 stars on Amazon and Goodreads and places like that, please take a moment and do that.
Authors love to go see their books online and see that somebody else gave it a great review. It really means more than you'd think. So please take the time. Impossible is an illusion. Scattering the ashes. The least among them. All well worth your time. And of course, coming on April 11th, From Compton to the Bronx, the Roy White story written by Roy White with yours truly. Hey, this has been the Start Spreading the News show. Once again, sorry we didn't do this live tonight. Hopefully the Buccaneers are winning right now. Hopefully Tom Brady's having a great game. And Ethan and I have at least another Sunday or 2 or 3 so we can watch his favorite player, probably the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, continue to work his magic and do great things. Also, as a guy who rooted for John Riggins and Joe Theismann of the early 80s Redskins, well, it's always fun watching the Cowboys lose. Hopefully, I'm watching that happening right now. If not, you can rest assured that even if it's a good game, if the Cowboys win when it's all over, I'll say that was no good. It's not fun when the team you're rooting for doesn't win. Maybe I should be more mature about this. But if I was, then I probably wouldn't be a fan. We'll be back right here Monday night, 9 p.m. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan, Dr. Sem, Dr. Fagan, to Start Spreading the News show. Thank you for spending an hour with me here tonight. Have yourself a great day. I'll see you again Saturday morning, 7 a.m. for the Dr. Sem show, and then at 8 a.m. for the Mac and Jack debate show. Have yourself a great night and a great